What's going on, everybody? Dr. Josh Hant here for Lifestyle Locker Radio. We are going live here with episode 203, and this is the Race to 100, part 2. This is called the Freedom Run. And if all of you, or those of you who have followed me on my journey months ago, last October 2019, 2019 October, I did my first 100-mile run attempt. And for those of you that followed me on that journey, you know it was quite challenging. I took you through many, many weeks, I think like 13 or 14 weeks of podcasts of me going through my training, my feelings, the ups, the downs, all the different things the emotions that come along with training for a big event. And what I found and learned during that event was priceless. But for those of you that don't remember, I got injured at on or about mile 30. And what happened, I sprained my left lateral collateral ligament and possibly had done some meniscus damage, but I think the meniscus damage was old. But I sprained my left lateral collateral ligament, which is a ligament on the side of the knee, the outside of the knee, connecting the bone in your thigh to the lower leg. So that was swollen, inflamed, and through that process, at mile 30, I ran 22.4 more miles with that sprained knee, proving that my headspace was good enough, strong enough to push hard. But in that journey of those 22.4 miles, I ended up breaking multiple toes, which was not very pleasant. So I ended up calling the race because a friend that was there, his name is John, which many of you, you've maybe seen him or heard him on episodes of Lifestyle Locker Radio and some of our crazy journeys that we have done together. He said, you got to decide if you're willing to deal with pain or have a disability. So I opted to stop so I didn't get fully disabled and ruin possibly my knees, my joints that they were already injured and inflamed for hours, almost 5 hours or 4 hours of running. So that being said, I'm on a new journey. I have run now in the past couple months, 2.5 months, I think since May, and going back about a month from now, I ran 2 50-mile ultras. One was pretty much fully untrained for a 50, asked on a Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember exactly what it was, and ran on a Saturday. 50 miles. We were doing 2.5-mile loops, one forwards, one backwards, so we had a 5-mile loop essentially that we were doing. And we did that for 50 miles. And I was able to complete it, do well. I did it fully fasted. What an amazing journey, and understanding the power of the human body. And I just recently did one called the Cayuga 50 in Ithaca, New York, which was pretty gnarly, pretty gnarly. It was a 50-miler. It was 90 plus degrees. I'm guessing it had to be close to 100 degrees with the heat index. I got lost on that journey. I also did that mostly fasted. I did cheat a little bit. I shouldn't say cheat, but I ended up having some calories. I had, besides energy bits, which are the algae that I have, the chlorella and the spirulina, I did have a couple of shot blocks just because I was bonking. I was sweating a lot. I went through gallons of water during that event. And I've decided that I'm going to use food for the 100. I'm going to eat some calories. I'm expected to do this race coming up in September, which is right around the corner now. It was a 100-mile event called the Yeti 100 in Virginia. And I'm just going to go over some of my notes because I want to make sure I touch all the points. So we said this is the Race 100 Part 2. This is my freedom run, right? I'm running for freedom at this point. The landscape has totally changed since the beginning of this year. And we're all living through this change in the way we can travel, the way we can interact with other human beings, the way we can actually share information online, being censored, and so on and so forth. There are lots of things that have changed. Even just being out in nature, we have experienced people that are shaming those that are not covering their faces while they're hiking in the mountains. And to me, that's just sad. I think it's, if you're fearful and of the things that are still going on, then I think great. It's a free country. You should definitely cover up. But for those that are active and healthy, me personally, I can't give you advice. I'm not your doctor. but I'm out and about. I'm training without a mask on. Listen, I'm running a lot of miles every single day of the week, just about at this point. And you know what? It's not for me to be doing something that's going to hurt myself. And frankly, I don't feel like passing out during a run because I'm restricting oxygen while I'm having a huge effort in 90-degree weather outside of New York. But nonetheless, so the landscape has totally changed. The fear that's going on is crazy. My last event, we had to take some serious precautions. We had to do some things that were, to me, a little crazy when we have people that are showing up to run 50 miles in nature in almost 100-degree temperature. This, I don't believe, is the crowd that is going to be, sick and sickly. That's just my personal opinion, me being one of those people. But nonetheless, so we had to really change the way we actually ran the race, right? We had to actually stagger our starts, so there weren't groups of us together. So we were starting slowly, 3 of us at a time, had to have masks on, had to have all of these things going on. For the beginning of the race, we had these little sleeves that we put on, look almost like a shirt sleeve that you pull down, very thin, easy to breathe through, but we had to do it because we were in a state park. And I understand, I don't want any businesses, any small businesses, races, I don't want them to be affected and be shut down because of this. I run a small business myself, multiple small businesses, and they have taken a hit during coronavirus, and I want to make sure that I'm supporting those small groups and not doing something that's going to harm them, those small businesses. So nonetheless, we made it through the whole thing. It was a little awkward having to put a mask on to go onto an aid station when you've hit 20, 30, 40 miles. Breathing is hard enough in almost 100 degrees, let alone covering your mouth and your nose to do that, right? So I flexed I became a little flexible, I should say, so that ultimately I was able to get through my race. I did get lost. Definitely had some challenging times, but I ended up making it through at about 52 miles. And now as we get close to the 100, there's a lot of uncertainty with what's going on when it comes to travel, when it comes to going from state to state. Seems kind of scary that this is the United States when we have these travel restrictions interstate-wide. But nonetheless, we were up in upstate New York, my wife and I, this past week, I should say. And what we found, we met someone who was going, this is really cool actually. So we met a group of hikers, there was 3 of them. And I heard them as they were behind us or on the side of us, I heard them talking about, crewing for a race or crewing for something. And in the ultra marathon world, when you have crew, those are the people, that was like my wife, the crew captain, that help food, nutrients. And you may even have someone called a pacer, which will actually run with you during certain parts of an event. So I hear them talk about crew and pacing, and I go, hey, who's an ultra marathoner? And both these guys pointed to this woman who definitely looked like the ultra marathoning type. And she's like, oh, I run ultra marathons. And then we were just chit-chatting back and forth. And she had flown in from California the night before with a professional athlete exemption, which is really cool, which I'm going to find if we can do for my event as well, depending on travel situations in about 5 weeks. But she was able to fly in from California to actually help her friend, her crew, and pace for her friend who is going for it's called the FKT, the fastest known time for I think it's the 46 big peaks in New York State. She was shooting for it. It's 135 miles, somewhere upwards of 60,000 vertical feet of climbing during this event. And she was pacing for them. I'm like, holy cow. She's like, I'll probably just do the first 60 with her. I'm like, mind blowing, right? Really cool stuff. So it's neat to see that with the landscape changing, people are still getting after it. People are still going and pushing hard to actually get themselves better, to actually be better, to break world records. This FKT would be a world record for these 46 peaks. I Googled it. It looks pretty freaking gnarly, right? It's really, really gnarly. And it got me thinking what's next for me? I have the 100 in September, but what's after that? Am I going to do an FKT attempt somewhere? What am I going to train for? But nonetheless, I think it's pretty cool to see that there are people, even while we're traveling, that are getting after it and that they're able to get certain exemptions so they don't have to necessarily follow certain guidelines when they get back because they're going as a professional athlete, which is really interesting and really neat. What else? My training. My training has been kind of a little off. I've been consistent, but I've definitely not been putting as many miles in as I would like to. You know, I'm watching a friend training alongside me in a different state, right? And just we're watching each other via Strava and things like that. And he's pushing some bigger days. He's definitely a regimented guy as well. And he's shooting for his first 100-mile race. And I'm watching and I'm impressed. So kudos to Austin. Good job, bro. I appreciate your motivation via Strava and seeing some of your Facebook and social media stories. But my training hasn't been the craziest. But I will say this. I've been able to fully complete 2 ultra marathons in a short period of time with a short break. Almost fully fasted for one of them and almost fully fasted for a second, both in extreme heat, and I've made it through. And so, you know, I guess there's something called complacency, which is maybe in my head thinking to myself, you know, probably could do 100. I don't need to train as much. And that's not maybe so true. I know I have that maybe David Goggins mentality in my head, for the point where he's like, he just showed up for, you know, never training for 100, and the next day he registers for a 100-mile race and does it. For those of you that listen to Can't Hurt Me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't listened to that book, get the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It will definitely inspire you to be better. Definitely inspire you to be better, and maybe, you know, have you drop your jaw a couple times and you, if you get the audio, which I highly recommend when you're listening to Holy Cow. Yeah, I listened to it, I think, 6 times in 2019. It's a lot of hours of listening to this book. What's been off for me? I want to share this as well, because we're going to share some of these details as we move forward through the next 5 weeks, is my weight training has been off. I've been out of a gym since pretty much the beginning of the year. I don't have home equipment. I have a little pull-up bar in my door here, but it's 6'2", and I could touch the ceiling of my room I'm in. I can't really do great pull-ups here. Like, my feet have to dangle and so on and so forth. I know that's an excuse, but I really don't have any weights. I have some light weights that I bought Meredith, my wife, years ago, that are 12.5-pound weights. And I've actually, the crazy thing is, I've weighed myself recently. I haven't done it maybe in the past week, but I'm under 180 pounds. I don't remember the last time I've been really under 180 pounds, besides when I was training for my last 100, but that was while weight training. So I was weight training and running, and I still weighed like 177 pounds. So that's right about where I am right now. Skinny guy. For me, you know, my wife's like, where are your muscles going? I'm like, listen, I run. I guess I'm all legs at this point. But I want to get back into weight training. We're going to start focusing on some mobility. We're going to start focusing more on using my, I have a massage gun, one of those, what is mine called? Mine's called a Craft gun. There are a lot of different ones, Hypervolt and all these different ones. I got this one because I got a deal on it, and it said it was quiet and the battery lasted a long time. So I use it. I like it. It works. If you like those things, I think they're well worth it. I would say just don't try and use it after a big event. You know, I did it after my 50 in Ithaca. Came back, we stayed in my mother-in-law's camper, and I went like, let me just put it on my legs. I put it on my calf. I almost thought I was going to jump through the roof. Felt like someone like hit me with a baseball bat really hard, and it did not feel good. So I'd recommend doing it even like the night before. Get some myofascial work done that way. Really break up some of the tissues, your hips, your glutes, all of your legs. And if you can, have someone even work on some of the muscles in your lower back and your traps and your shoulders, but you do use all of them while you're running. So weight training's been down. I'm working on figuring ways to make it better for the next 5 weeks so I can do some proactive things. I may have to steal or borrow some of a friend's equipment. My buddy who does some Spartan training, I did the first 50 with him untrained. His name is Clay. You know, super cool guy. Definitely check out that episode. But I may see if I can borrow some gear from him and just do some extra training at home, or maybe actually do some training with him to keep the ball moving forward. I need to build a little more strength as we go through this, because what's going to happen, and I said this during my Race to 100, the first one that we did, the first 14 whatever weeks of this, is weight training has been essential. Is essential to endurance running. I know that sounds crazy, and for those of you that listened to our interview with Chris Gethin, definitely listen to the interview with Chris Gethin, the episode with him. he talks about something really cool, and then he if you look at him, he's like this huge, strong, big guy. But what he says is super important. He goes, runners need to lift more, and lifters need to run more. And this guy, he looks like a bodybuilder, like when you actually look at the image on his show and on the show notes, and also check his website out. This guy is a beast. He's done an Ironman as this monster bodybuilding type person to prove that it's possible. Smart guy, intelligent. I highly check it out. But for me, weightlifting is super important because what I've found is that it's easy to push yourself, but it's good to be able to have a crutch to rely on, which is some extra strength, which can help pull you through in the long run. My multiple 50s that I've done three. I think I've done 3 50s. I've done a ruck. We're carrying almost 40 pounds. And then I've done the 2 recent ones. I may have done one more. I don't even remember at this point. Oh, and I did my last 50. So I've done 4 50-mile events. And strength is essential. It's a great friend to have while you're pushing through. I'm not the fastest guy on the road for sure, the trail. I'm far from that. But I'm like a choo-choo train. I'm very consistent. And I really want to be ultra consistent for the 100 that's coming up. And the last thing that I want to talk about is I mentioned complacency, but why I think that also leads to is the why. Like, why am I running? Why are you doing what you do when you train? Are you doing it just so you can look in the mirror and say, hey, I look fit, look really cool, I can get a couple awesome Instagram photos? Or are you doing it for health purposes and function purposes? Or are you doing it for something else? And when I think about my why, I was thinking this morning, I ran this morning, my 3rd day in a row. I just did over a half marathon this morning. And I was thinking to myself, like, why am I doing this still? Not that I didn't want to, but really to think of why I was doing these. And really, I like to use running as my metaphor to everything in my life at this point, right, in my life. And running distance is hard. Running ultra distance is harder. And what that leads me to think about how I go about everything in my life. And I'm looking at a whiteboard over here with a long list of to-dos. I shouldn't say to-dos. These are what we call modules or units. I have a 30-65 program, and it's built out for 33 weeks. And I look at that and think, I wouldn't normally be that proactive and ahead of the game by building out programs or trainings for all of our members of the 30-65 program had I not been this ultra distance runner. Because when you do ultra distance, you have to keep yourself inspired to keep going that extra step, to go that extra half mile, that extra mile, that extra 10 miles, whatever it is. You need to keep inspired because it's very easy to become bored, to be like, you know what, like, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's easy to do that. It's happened to me many, many, many times on runs. Today, I wasn't sure how far I was going to go. I told my wife it was going to be a one-way journey, and you're going to hopefully have to pick me up. If not, I would get back home. But I finished at 13.2, and I said I was spent. I've had 3 days of back-to-back longer runs for me, which can be mostly normal, but my training hasn't been as intense as it has to be. So I made sure I got that 13.2, even though I had to walk some of it, and I'm 100% okay with that, right? So ultramarathoning helps me inspire myself, but it drives me to inspire people like you to do better, to be better, to take that extra step in your life. And I love fitness, and I love staying healthy, and I love all of these things in lifestyle, hence Lifestyle Locker, that I use this skill set, if you will, of endurance running that I've created over the past few years to help people outside of my chiropractic practice, outside of even Lifestyle Locker Radio, the podcast that you're listening to right now. I do this so I can inspire those to be a little bit healthier, because really what it comes down to is, if we just look at everything in our lives, the only thing that you will not get back easily if you lose it is your health. That's a hard thing to get back. And if you spend decades of ruining it it's very hard to get back. So I want to inspire people to do a little bit, just a little bit every single day, and just think of it as compound interest for your health. So that's why I do it, because I can inspire people to do just a little more, be a little better, have a little more confidence in themselves, and also to be okay with not hitting that target or goal every single time. You know, and I mentioned this in my small group that we have, is when you push, if you're out to get 2 miles every single day, and for whatever reason, whatever excuse, it doesn't make a difference, you go ahead and you hit 1.8. Maybe your GPS turned off on your watch, maybe you got a phone call, you had an emergency, you had to run somewhere, whatever it was. Are you going to beat yourself up over the 0.2 miles, or are you going to celebrate that 1.8, right? So when I failed my first 100, I succeeded in my first 52-mile run. So think about that. I failed my 100, which really mentally, it hurt. It really, really hurt mentally. It really, I had so much energy left in the tank. I really wanted to go, but I was in pain. I was broken. Things were not like working the way they should because of the injury. And but then I had to step back and say, holy cow. I just ran 52.4 miles. I ran 2 marathons back to back. And I ran almost a full marathon with a sprained knee. So I had to step back away from not accomplishing what I really wanted to, but accomplishing so much for myself. Biggest thing I'd ever done. Right? Biggest thing I'd ever done. I was like, holy cow. So that's why I do what I do, and I do it to inspire myself. I do it to inspire others, and I ultimately love having you go on this journey with me, because it becomes part of who we are, fabric of our society, of our little group that we have here, that if we can keep each other inspired to be healthier, to eat healthier, to move healthier, to think healthier, to hang around healthier people and have healthier habits, this world ultimately becomes a much better place. That we're not worried about the next problem. We're focused on what we can do to become better versus hide and fear, right? So I urge all of you to follow me on this journey so we can enjoy this together. You can be part of my pain. You can be part of my celebration. But we can go on this journey, and maybe, just maybe, it'll inspire you to take the next steps to be better, to do better, to have better in your life, and just to enjoy it. Because this journey that we're on is going to end at some point, and if we're not being healthy and enjoying it fully, why are we living? So thank you so much. Once again, Dr. Josh Hand here for Lifestyle Locker Radio. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye.